Welcome to Inside Out, the Louverclad podcast where we explore how Australia's most distinctive facades are inspired, engineered and implemented. If you've ever wondered how ambitious designs make the leap from concept to construction, you're in the right place. In every episode, we'll take you behind the scenes of complex projects, delve into challenges, and meet the designers, makers and visionaries who turn bold ideas into iconic facades. Today, our guest is Samuel Suarez, a facade specialist and mechanical engineer with more than 20 years of experience shaping building envelopes across Australia. Many will remember Samuel from his time at Louverclad, where he helped deliver standout projects like Constitution Place, the ACA building, and many more. Today, as a Senior Facade Designer at Northrop Consulting Engineers, he brings that deep delivery experience into integrated facade design, helping turn ambitious structural ideas into facades that truly perform. So welcome, Samuel.
Thank you, Udava, for having me. Very excited to be here.
Before we get into this, Samuel, so you're now working as a facade engineer, facade designer. How do you define facade?
A facade, really, what people now calling it in a more complete way, is really the building envelope. So what wraps up the building? What keeps the elements out? And what keeps the people living inside the building warm and dry and safe from the elements outside? However, facades are also all of these bits and pieces sticking out of a building. So all these sunshades, all these screens, all these awnings and pergolas, and in some cases, things like balustrades and screening can become part of the facade. So yeah, basically all of these elements that keep the building enclosed and all of these elements that are part of this aesthetic building external composition.
Thank you for really explaining that and defining that, because I think, sometimes when people hear that word facade, they automatically think curtain wall. So it is really much more.
It could be anything. It could be anything. You could have anything from bricks to steel to aluminium claddings, all claddings of all types, from terracotta tiles to porcelain tiles to many all other different materials. You can have timber battens, you can have timber beams, you can have all sort of different materials. You can have mesh, for example. You can have, many materials. You let the architect imagine it and stick it in and we'll find a way to put it outside the building.
I guess it's really about, creating more comfortable conditions within the building in the end as well, isn't it?
It is a combination of the architectural aesthetic vision and that performance that is needed for a facade to do the job that it needs to do, as well that you will ambition to do because it's a nice idea, because you want it to be a very sustainable facade, because you want it to be a facade that cares for the birds, for example. We recently were asked to develop a facade that had in mind the anti-bird collision, because it was an area that was very rich in birds. So
native birds.
You could be designing a facade, for example, that needs to take into account reflectivity because you are next to a highway or a railway. You could be designing a facade that needs to be very highly acoustically rated because you are next to a very busy road. Or you could be designing a facade that has to be blast-proof because it's an embassy and who knows what could happen. So, yes, the facade is made of many different requirements.
Yeah, so it really needs to perform to meet the program of the building.
Yes, it will need to meet many requirements for sure.
You're from Colombia originally?
Yes. So I came to Australia originally as a very short trip.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a few months of a short English course and a holiday. But very quickly in the year 2000, the Olympics, Sydney was a very vibrating place with lots of really interesting things going on. Amongst those, many amazing buildings happening. And yes, work opportunities and the opportunity to stay in Australia as a permanent resident arose, and decided to give it a go. And here I am 26 years later.
I just want to take it back even further, like when you were younger and obviously living in Colombia, like what really inspired you to get into engineering? Because you've obviously got mechanical engineering, but then you've ended up in facade.
Yeah, well, it all started. I guess to keep the long story very short, I come from a family of artists, builders, and architects, where the combination of those was always there. In my house, there was always a construction project going on, either in my house or in the holiday house. My dad was a person that studied engineering or almost finished engineering. He dropped out because family situations, but then he became an engineer, and so I was quite exposed to architecture, to engineering, to building sites. As growing up, there was always a workshop in our house, somewhere you can play with materials and build things. So by the age of 15, I already had a workshop with tools that I could cut and make things out of wood and metal. I could build a billy car or a small remote control airplane or very sophisticated tray house. So from that, 3 siblings, myself, my sister, and my brother, we all experimented with materials, with constructions, building little cubby houses in the bamboo forest in our holiday house. And from there, we ended up having an architect, my brother, my sister, she's a construction project manager. I myself am a mechanical engineer, which when I went to study mechanical engineering, very quickly I realized that mechanical engineering perhaps was away from other things that were really interesting to me, like buildings. So I did study mechanical engineering, completed my degree in mechanical engineering, worked for engineering companies in the industrial sector, like big cement plants and paper mills and automation lines in car manufacturing facilities. And all of that knowledge was amazing. Coming out of uni, feeling that there was a part of me that was missing that contact with architecture and with art, that was all engineering in a very technical, and there was something missing there. So I decided to come to Australia, where I had the opportunity to stay. And as I tried to make my life here, my first few years in Australia were working as a carpenter, as a person on site, that sooner than later led to being part of installation crews, installing facades. And when I got exposed to facades, it was like, wow, this is a very interesting field to work, where engineering, the manufacturing, the fabrication, the materials, the structural design, and it's all coming together into a very amazing form of engineering. And yeah, so that's in a nutshell what happened. And so more or less in around the year 2004 or 5, I did end up working specifically in facades. And from there, one basic role working as a facade coordinator in a building site took me into a project management role, then into a design management role, then into an engineering manager, into facade companies, and multiple roles, everyone very different in nature, but all of them certainly focusing design and delivering the facade projects.
Wow, yeah. So it sounds like you've really just followed your interest.
Yes, it happened all very organically. I think as a person that was very interested in all of these different things in building, engineering, architecture, and art. Facade was definitely a place where I felt very comfortable. That interaction with the technical team, the engineers, and the different designers. That part of me that is a carpenter, being in the factories, seeing the machines and talking to the workers in the factory floor, or being out in the architects' offices, discussing concepts and how to turn these amazing, beautiful architectural idea into nuts and bolts and something that will perform. So yeah, there was that opportunity to relate and to cooperate with these really different teams of people. I guess one of the things that I always consider that made all of this possible was my ability to feel at home at every one of those places, in the factory, in the site, in the office with the architects, with the engineers, and with the project managers. Mm-hmm. So there was every part of the process was very enjoyable to me.
Nice. Yeah, it sounds like you really understand like buildings and facade design from the micro detail, to looking at it from the big picture down to the micro detail, which allows you to be in all those different areas of this.
Yeah. So now,
space.
So like going into facades, it's been a discovery to me. I remember when I was still studying engineering, going into the library so I have two favorite sections in the university library. One was like the engineering books, but the other one was the architecture books. And I will go into these modern architecture books and like, wow, this is really amazing. How do you build that? Mm. Like, how can you build something like that? What do you need to know to build something like that? What sort of skills do you need to have to build, a Pompidou in some Frank Gehry building? What do you need to know? And so I was inspired, and then when I started working in facades, is discovering that is a huge world with materials and all the different sciences that come together to deliver a facade. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
So how important do you think it really is, for facade engineers to have that really kind of hands-on experience as well? Do you find working in the industry now that people have that hands-on experience, or they're mostly more theory?
Well, to start with, I think it's not only facade. I think every building professional should have that opportunity to have that hands-on experience. Mm-hmm. I always tell the people that I work with, the young people, be more on site. I wish you could have the opportunity that I have to be out there in a site, putting up facades with a screw gun in your hand and telling the guy, move this with the crane, and understanding how things come together on site, mm-hmm. because that gives you an in-depth understanding of facade systems. You understand what it takes to fabricate a facade. You understand what it takes to move it around in a truck or put it into a container, then how to handle that into a position, understand what sort of tolerances you need in a facade, understanding that the machines and the materials got limitations, and understanding that every material has properties and all of these different things that the site really gives you on the factories, and that experience firsthand, hands-on experience gives you more in-depth understanding. Of course, as you move more into your career, that falls behind, but then you start to really gain a more technical knowledge on systems, materials, and the different softwares and the different tools that exist to design facades. But yes, this practical experience and hands-on experience in the early career, I think, is very important for any person working in the building design industry.
Yeah, I think I've seen that in a lot of projects actually, as well, as far as, there's the practical engineering calcs and whatnot, but then to understand that constructability, how things are actually constructed, there's often, there's maybe a breakdown in communication between those two things sometimes, and to find someone that really understands that really helps.
And it's surprising because that has been one of my big surprises in building facades, is how little one party knows about the other and how disrupted the workflow is. Like the guys in the factory don't really have a lot of contact with the architect, and the architect sometimes is not as close as it probably should be from the engineer. And so there's always that this connection, and not always, but I think is very important that during that process, the different elements and people working on the facades are more connected and understand that different steps and have the opportunity to interact more during the design process. So for me, that understanding of that process, for sure, it's been a great vantage point.
Yeah. When you moved into that more kind of facade industry, did you actually end up doing some further qualifications and things as far as structural?
Yeah, so I did master's in engineering management, which was more to do with the university that was offering this. The UTS University had some courses in facade engineering, which I took, and it was okay. But I think the real learning on facades has been through projects.
Yeah.
Every project will put you through an immense amount of hours of studying something new, a system or a software or a different material, and that opportunity, it really happens project to project, that where you have that specific need to specialize in something. Is it brick? Is it like, terracotta tiles? Is it some sort of a cladding system that you have not used before? Is it a difficult structure that you don't know how to resolve? So then you have to study more and understand more how that works. And of course, the interaction with the professionals that you work with. This is one of is better than any university lecture.
Definitely. I think I'm learning every day.
Sitting down in a room and listening to these amazing experts and people that some of them are amazing at sharing their knowledge. And when you have that opportunity to be in a room with someone that has so much to give and to share, and you definitely gain a very valuable knowledge that's not there before. So you walk away from a meeting or from a project or from experience in facades with a lot of experiences and learnings.
Mm-hmm. And so I remember there's a few projects that before you were at Louverclad, I think there was some quite amazing projects. Like there was one down at Barangaroo with some sliding curved screens that was probably very complex.
So that was for FGMT at that time, called now FJC. Great architects. They always amaze me as one of the architects in Australia that have this incredible understanding of facades. They got a very in-depth knowledge of facades, and their designs are always pushing the limits of what facades can do, because they know they can, and because they understand what is possible with the right team.
Yeah.
And so in this particular case, it was called the Cloud in Barangaroo, the white Kirby building in Barangaroo. That building had some very technical challenge. Some of that from the mechanical point of view, they wanted to design something that did not really exist in the market. So we designed a very unique derailing system for the screens, for example, and then the cladding, the way that was constructed, and the screens, it was not a proprietary system, so we have to design it all, and it came out pretty well, and it worked pretty well. So that is an example of previous projects where I had a lot of learnings, and previous to that, I did work with few large curtain wall companies, Chinese curtain wall companies, exposed to high-rise tier 1 curtain wall projects where you have this the largest scale delivery of a facade, where it has to be a very well articulated design and delivery strategy. That was definitely a time where I learned a lot from these large Chinese curtain wall companies, then moving into this company, which in that case was Townsend Group, which at the time it was a company known for the high quality and very interesting team of people with a lot of experience in delivering very beautiful and specialized facades. And then from there, I went to Louverclad, where Louverclad definitely provided great experiences for learning more specifically on things like ventilation louvers and screens. And that was another opportunity that brought some really good experiences and learnings.
At Louverclad, you were involved in projects like Constitution Place, the ACA building. What really made these projects challenging? Were there any
well,
key
I think
moments?
the starting with the Constitution Place, I think it was basically we're trying to do things that were not usual, like having louvers that were completely doors and other louver systems that wanted to blend a bit more with the architecture rather than being this brutalistic, disruptive ventilation louver. They wanted to make it a bit more architectural, a bit more integrated with the facade lines, which was not a usual or conventional system.
Yep.
So we have to think a lot how to resolve that. So that was a good challenge. I think the outcome was great. And working with the curtain wall specialist in the job, Michaels, where we have to have a very good delineation of their work and our work. Require a really detailed coordination. So that was a really good exercise. Projects like the ACA projects here in Sydney, where we had the architect looking to have an operable enclosure, which was, again, not a proprietary system. They wanted to create something that was very unique in terms of geometry and operation. So we have to come up with a very bespoke design with an interesting mechanisms and control systems to create this operable facade. So yeah, those couple of good examples of kind of pushing the usual design into new heights. Those sort of projects are quite stimulating, and I do.
Yeah, and the ACA project was quite unique, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a very unique project, a bit of a showpiece.
It's funny, though, with that mechanism that I think, we spent so much time engineering it, and then I went and saw it, and they never put the solar shades down.
Well, that's what you get surprised with facades.
How people actually use the architecture.
Effort and engineering that goes into facades sometimes gets unnoticed. That is for sure.
Working as a project manager at Louverclad, you were always kind of managing this kind of complexity and obviously lots of risk on the project. So,
well, I think the facades and the more than I work on facades, it is certainly one of the highest risk elements of a building. A lot of things can go wrong with a facade.
Yes.
They can collapse, or they can leak, or they can be horribly badly specified and have incredible amount of heat or cold coming through it, or they can catch on fire, which is, of course, we all know about that. And so there's a very high risk as well from the financial point of view. The wrong design can cost a lot of money. The wrong design can cost a lot of money in repairs or use defects. So yeah, it is a very high risk element in the building. And as you design facades and as you manage designing facades, it's always in your mind how I am mitigating all of these risks. Because, a mistake and overlooked into a specification or something that was not fully developed because you didn't have enough time for prototyping, or you didn't have enough money to test it a few times and you only had time to test it once, or because a program was pressing and said, leave it, we're moving to fabrication with this. That could be a catastrophic decision. And we've seen projects where this is everywhere, and it will cost money, it will cost reputation, it will cost pain to everyone in the building. And in some cases, like, for example, we've all seen the project remediate and cladding replacements. It seems like no one's fault, maybe, that at some time ago, everyone thought that asbestos was a great material, and now we all know it's not. Yes. Everyone thought that ACP composite aluminum was a great material, and it happens that it was not. So who knows what is going to be next, but we try not to fall into those mistakes again. And so, testing and compliance, and of course, there's very much the industry learn from these mistakes.
Yeah.
There's more regulations. The NCC now is more thorough on compliance requirements and with the standards and testing. So I think the risk is being better managed.
Yeah.
Is probably a way to say it, but it is to the designers and the engineers to regulate that and be always on that case of knowing that we know what can go wrong. So don't let it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So was there any like a key project which stands out in your memory that really challenged you like that you thought, oh no, this is just going to be, I have to really
I think
turn this
there's
around,
a recent project that we work in Northrop was the Lackland Avenue student accommodation, not particularly complex, but it was probably one of the largest projects as the Northrop facade team was coming off the ground. And that was challenging for the team. We had to work through a few design situations were not easy to resolve. But I think the team and the experience and everyone came to the table with good solutions. So that is probably a good example of what good facade engineering should look like. Yeah, so that's a good example.
You need a good team, really, don't you?
Absolutely.
With all the different experiences and
I think
coming together. And
the more you work in these projects, is going to be a combination of very highly talented designers and very knowledgeable and talented analytical engineers, very good managers that can deal with that problem resolution process and lead that design process. So it's a lot of elements that make the team. Is the management, is the technicality, is the quality of the documentation, is a lot of things that will make a project like this become a success.
With your contractor side experience, how has this influenced the way you now approach facade design and coordination in Northrop? How do you still maintain your creativity?
I think this has been a quite an interesting for me to kind of see the benefits of that contractor experience every day. I see it. Is very important to me that when we designing facades, I know that I'm talking to someone that has if I'm talking to an architect, I know he's got this vision, and it's very important for the architect to deliver that vision, that beauty, those lines, those slender members, that translucent glass, all these very beautiful lines that will make this building a landmark.
Yeah.
But in the other side, we got a builder that has got a budget. He's got a program, and he's got a deadline, and he's got subcontractors that are telling him that, no, I cannot do that. So you need to manage that reality. And so that contractor background is being extremely important. Understanding that what can you do for each of them and what can you do for the project, and that will in the end benefit everyone. No, of course, not as you cannot say yes to everyone or to everything, but there's limits and there are things that you can do to get out of your way to make those people, right now the world wouldn't be happy, but to be that person that make that possible. And I think that is within limits is always a really interesting experience. And having that contractor experience, the language, the what feels to be on those shoes, and so that's for sure great advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you see the biggest challenges are facing the Australian building industry at the moment, particularly around performance, sustainability, and I guess compliance in the end?
Well, there's a few things. Let's talk about a few. One of them is I think the supply chain, I think, is going to change a lot. A lot of people, we all see what is going on around the world, and we're very dependent on imports. I think Australia somehow needs to shift a little bit more towards local manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
And in my view, there should be a really large focus on doing that. And from buildability, labor is every day more expensive. So having systems that are labor intensive on site is something that we need to think. So we need to be working on more prefabricated, unitized, more systems that are fast built while maintaining, of course, all the important things. Companies, they need to become more efficient. Clad, for example, is a good example. Very well oil machine company that demonstrates that making facades in Australia is possible. How delivering high quality designing and making facades in Australia is possible. So companies need to be more efficient. I think builders, they need to become more aware of the construction methods need to be efficient, and the operations and think from the ground. Therefore needs to be, probably the message for builders would be, spend all the time and money you can spend on the design, early design stages. Think for efficiency. Then you don't have to really worry about too much about the incredible cost of putting up a facade, because something could be done differently at the early stages of the project. Architects, I think architects, they are at the moment enchanted by these softwares and materials. So nowadays you can, do a parametric model with Inventor, with Rhino, and then you come up with these crazy geometries. So there's not to be a limit to what you do with those sort of tools. And it's to be done in a way that is intelligent and is very rational process, where you come up with something that is very interesting and unique without having to create a unbuildable building.
Yes. So I guess that's where it comes down to really getting that expert advice early on, doesn't it? Looking at this.
Yeah, and then we can keep going on developers, for example.
Yes.
Developers, they got this ambition to make money, of course. That's what they do. They buy land, they put up buildings, and they make buildings. So they need to be conscious of materials that are cheap, and systems that are cheap are not a good idea. They will sooner than later fail one way or another. Mm-hmm. So there's all of these people that are involved in the process, from that developer to the builder, that will have some impact on the final product. And all of them, I think, got some decisions to make better facades and better buildings. And I will add to that is the government and the agencies, like, from the NCC or Green Star or Passive House, and all of these ambitions into buildings. They are all good ideas, and they need to be as well managed to deliver buildings that are, every building, of course, we want it to be better, but they need to stay within their realistic limits. Some of the ambitions are difficult to achieve, and sometimes it is a fine line between pushing those target values or those target those facade performance specifications to limits that are not necessarily worth it.
Is that something that's come up in a project recently, or?
Yes, I think so.
Sustainability.
I think so. Is on some project. It's very common where the targets are used unrealistic and sometimes unnecessary, and that increases a lot the complexity and the cost for the project. So that's another comment on that. So few things to think about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And what about like the D&C process? That's a bit of a challenge, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and it's difficult because the D&C is a very open bracket, and where a lot of things can happen. And I think for the architects, it's always a nightmare.
Everything's always changing.
You start with a beautiful idea, and then everything changes radically. Yes, it could be a good approach to project delivery, but what we find lately is that the ECI, the early contractor interventions in projects, is a very good approach where you got the savvies or the builders involved early on the project. So that's a really, to me, is probably definitely one of the best strategies to deliver great projects. And in the case of facades, is that opportunity to have that early input that we've been talking about that will make a massive difference.
Yeah.
So that's something to have in mind.
So looking ahead, over the next 5 to 10 years, how do you see facade design and delivery evolving? What kind of skills will the next generation of facade specialists need most, do you think?
I think that's a good question because you know that you cannot get a facade engineering degree in Australia. In some countries, you could.
Interesting.
England, in Netherlands, in Germany, in America. There's some places where you can get like formal qualifications in facade engineering. In Australia,
because you can do structural, but not facade.
Yeah.
So such, right.
There's now associations and in Australia that kind of group people together, but it's not really possible to walk away from a university or an institution and say, here you go, you are a qualified facade engineer in Australia or from an Australian institution. But facade engineers comes from a lot of different places. Some of them are architects, some of them are structural engineers, some of them are mechanical engineers, some of them are just people that are specialist contractors that become engineers or experts into the facade design. So that means too, what the facade engineering is going, or I see it going, is that as these new projects come off the ground and there's more and more of them, a lot of people gain that experience that we're talking about that you gain in projects. So there's a wealth of knowledge from the architects, the contractors, the consultants. So that group is growing. I think Australian universities or courses should put more focus on creating modules that are very specific on facade engineering. The demand is there. There's an industry that is absolutely needing of more and more people that have the skills in everything from facade structural analysis to thermal modeling and condensation analysis. There's so many other things that are part of facade design, and those skills are not taught at a university right now, or not to the level that you will need them in a facade engineering practice. I guess the advice for the new generations is if you are interested in facade, I think an engineering degree or an architectural degree is a starting point. And then reaching out to an facade engineering consultant and say, look, I'm interested to learn about facade engineering. We have taken in some interns and now they are part of the team. And I think I see that across the board in other companies. And then from there, people learn the skills and get exposed to project work and learn the tools and understand how facade engineering and facade design works. For sure, the experience of working with facade contractors, highly recommended. That was my school, and I think it's very important. If you are a young person looking at working with facades, reach out to a contractor and learn how to facade construction works. It's a really good experience from seeing everything that happens on site, that everything that happens on the design office is fantastic experience. And I think now softwares and tools that are becoming more and more valuable, there's a lot of them. I won't go into the details, but learn a good digital CAD software that will allow you to speak the language of the designers, that you can then be part of that interesting design conversation with the tools in your hand that will give you the opportunity to work and do design work. Yeah.
Keep drawing. That's what you always say, isn't it?
And I'm glad that you touched on that. I'm been discussing this with quite senior engineers, and I'm gonna probably make an interesting comment here. Is hand drawing is a kind of dying trade, and And the more I talk about it with people, is like reading. We read less. We have more devices. Nowadays, we have a lot of iPads and a lot of computers, and the need to hand draw, you don't need to. But we had this conversation with a few people, and I don't think we need to, but we have to, because we forgetting how to think with our hands. When you draw with your hands, if you can draw something, it's because you know in your head how it all comes together. So drawing by hand and sketching, and every time that I see someone hand sketch, it brings a lot of joy to everyone in a team. When you see someone that done a good hand drawing, you understand that that person understands the problem and understands the design. It's like, okay, it's well resolved in paper. So that person had it super clear in his head. Like, you know, that is a good sign of that person.
We'd have to think in 3D.
Yeah,
well.
in AutoCAD or in you could fix it as many times as you want, and it takes you some time, and in the end you end up with your drawing. By hand, it is a fluid process that is very wired into your brain. If you can do it right, it's because absolutely something is going on. You know what you designing is. So I think next new generations and younger people don't disconnect from hand drawing design. It's a very powerful process. It's a very enjoyable process. It's a part of what design, in my opinion, is to be, which is that letting ideas come out of you. And I do enjoy a lot hand drawing and sketching, and most of the great designers that I know, it is a very strong thing they can do, and I admire a lot the people that can hand draw. Absolutely. And can do very nice hand drawings or even hand calculations. Like, you know, engineers that are very good at doing hand calculations. That is another very, very nice thing to see. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Samuel. It's been so great to have you here, and I always love hearing your insights on design and architecture and facade design especially. We love to leave every episode with our inspiring 3. So we believe, like you, in designing facades that inspire the world. We have 3 questions that we're going to ask.
Okay.
Is there a particular project? It doesn't have to be something that you worked on. Any project that really inspires you in your work and career?
Yes, I will say so. There's like few projects, but two come to my mind. One here in Sydney, which is the UTA's the Frank Gehry building, the brick building, because it really pushed the limits of what a material can do, and I like that idea. I really, really like that idea, and I've seen the design, and it's quite ingenious how it's been done, and when I see buildings like that, that sets the ground for more buildings and people to be excited and to be challenged to do that sort of work. So that's a really good one. I read a book a while ago on Gustave Eiffel on the Eiffel Tower, and similar, it was made at a time where these sort of things were not possible. It was absolutely impossible. No one done it before. It was not something that you can even think of. However, the Eiffel Tower was built, and new systems were created, new construction methods were created, new installation methods were created, and everything was new on a project like that. So it inspired me a lot, because that is kind of the engineering that says it's possible. So how can we resolve that? So that's, I guess, 2 projects that inspire me a lot.
Interesting. Danielle, actually, who was on one of our previous episodes, actually did the mechanical engineering on that UTA Frank Gehry project. So
right. Mm-hmm.
I need to go and visit it, because I've never actually been to see that building. So I need to plan that into my next trip. Is there a practice or a place that you go to that really keeps you grounded amongst all your busyness and your work? And
I know for me, it's definitely my woodwork and gardening. So I'm an avid gardener and avid woodworker and builder. I do have a place back in Colombia where I do have an experimental eco-village with small, tiny houses and up in a forest in a mountain. So yeah, that's a very important place to me where I keep experimenting with buildings and architecture.
Nice.
Myself, go there every few months, twice a year, try to.
Really? And so can people go and visit these little tiny homes?
Yes. I'll send you the link.
I'll have to put the link in the show notes. Okay. And finally, so was there a particular person whose advice or example has really stuck with you over your life?
Yes, I think so. Probably in my very early years of engineering, when I was still working with mechanical engineering. Yeah, so that was about the commitment to design and delivering projects with a lot of care. I think that was a message that stuck with me. So caring a lot for what you do and doing always your very best to deliver quality projects.
So that was just one of the people that were you?
Yeah, early time in my career that so kind of became a very important part of what I do. Mm-hmm.
Nice. Thanks, Samuel. Look forward to working with you on a project soon.
Thanks a lot. Thank you for having me.
For more insights and resources, please head to luvaclad.com. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to hit follow. Please join us next time.